Welcome back to another episode of Out Loud Week, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. Well, what did you think of the new intro graphics? I put that together myself, and I hope you enjoyed it. Next, I want to wish everyone a happy and safe Thanksgiving, and that I hope that you'll please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and press the bell to get notifications for video releases. Now on with today's topic. Some seemingly big news was shared earlier this week by The Hollywood Reporter regarding Lucasfilm. It's CEO, the pathological liar Kathleen Kennedy, who, with the help from Jar Jar Abrams and Rian Johnson, helped to destroy the Star Wars franchise, has now appointed Dave Filoni to be the studio's chief creative officer. Naturally, this will mean that he will be reporting directly to Kathleen Kennedy, and she would not have promoted him to such a position unless he was completely committed to carrying out her every order. Let's not forget that Kathleen Kennedy has fired many writers and directors from numerous Star Wars projects over what she claimed were quote-unquote creative differences. So for her to have promoted Dave Filoni to such a lofty position means that there are no creative differences between himself and Kennedy. Thus, I hope that the many people that I have been seeing on social media sites getting all excited over this announcement will take it with a grain of salt, because I can assure you that Dave Filoni is not going to be the savior of Star Wars. As a franchise, Star Wars is still just as dead now as it has been since I released my video back at the end of June, which was 5 months ago, in which I said that the franchise is indeed dead, and it has probably been dead a lot longer than that. Long before the truly boring Ahsoka series and the reprehensible third season of The Mandalorian aired earlier this year on Disney+, I used to have a lot of confidence in Dave Filoni, thanks to his creation of the animated series Star Wars: The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, as well as his involvement in the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. But his image began to tarnish with the release of that awful and forgettable 2018 animated series Star Wars Resistance, which I actually watched, and it only lasted 2 seasons. It was also essentially a prelude to Kathleen Kennedy's Star Wars sequel trilogy, and it aired more than a year before that dumpster fire of a movie, Star Wars IX: The Rise of Palpatine, premiered in 2019. That series effectively cemented the fact that Dave Filoni fully supports Kathleen Kennedy's vision of Star Wars, which was further demonstrated by the airing of the 3rd season of The Mandalorian and her announcement at the European Star Wars Celebration Convention back in April, where she announced that 3 new Star Wars movies would be produced, and that one of those movies is supposed to be directed by Dave Filoni, as I had talked about in a video that I had released at the time. So there's absolutely no way that Kathleen Kennedy would have given Filoni an entire Star Wars movie to direct unless he's in lockstep with her vision of the franchise, which includes the entire disastrous Disney sequel trilogy, as well as pushing her woke feminist agenda at every opportunity, just as he did in the most recent live-action series to premiere on Disney Plus that Dave Filoni created, the very mediocre and incredibly boring Ahsoka. So let's take a look at the article from The Hollywood Reporter. Dave Filoni is expanding his footprint in a galaxy far, far away. The longtime Star Wars force has been named Chief Creative Officer at Lucasfilm. Quote, "In the past, in a lot of projects I would be brought into, I would see it after it had already developed a good ways," unquote, Filoni told Vanity Fair, which broke the news. Filoni will now be involved in the early development on Star Wars projects, working with Lucasfilm head Kathleen Kennedy and head of development Carrie Beck. The move comes as Star Wars is at an inflection point. While it has been successful on the small screen, helping to power subscriptions on Disney Plus, only because of the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, no doubt, it has struggled to get films off the ground. And many of the films that did get off the ground were total crap, just like Kathleen Kennedy's most recent multi-million-dollar flop, Indiana Jones and the Dildo of Destruction. There have been no Star Wars features in theaters since Jar Jar Abrams' divisive dumpster fire of a movie, 2019's The Rise of Palpatine. As announced in April at Star Wars Celebration, Filoni is developing a live-action feature to direct, one that is said to tie together the time period between 1983's Return of the Jedi and 2015's The Force Awakens, and presumably featuring characters from the Disney Plus show, which I assume is a reference to The Mandalorian or Ahsoka. In other words, Filoni has been tasked with creating a movie that helps to explain the dozens of off-screen plot points that Jar Jar Abrams introduced with The Force Awakens that he could care less about, just like he didn't care about half of the mystery boxes that he introduced in that movie, which was nothing more than a rehash of George Lucas's original 1977 movie, Star Wars IV: A New Hope. Filoni has worked in the Star Wars galaxy for 2 decades, cutting his teeth in the world of animation on projects such as The Clone Wars and Rebels, before jumping to live action with shows such as The Mandalorian, which was created by Jon Favreau and became a pop culture phenomenon in late 2019 when it helped launch Disney Plus. Yes, unlike Jar Jar Abrams' dumpster fire of a movie, Star Wars IX: The Rise of Palpatine, which earned less money than both of its sequel trilogy predecessors. And not only that, as I had pointed out in a video that I had released on November 7th about the Disney Plus viewership numbers for Ahsoka, the second season of The Mandalorian has more total minutes viewed when it premiered on Disney Plus in the US than The Rise of Palpatine did with its equivalent minutes viewed in US movie theaters during its theatrical run. Filoni recently finished unveiling the first season of Ahsoka, which he created and picked up threads from his animated TV shows. For many, he is the heir apparent to Star Wars creator George Lucas. If George Lucas was still in charge of Lucasfilm and the sequel trilogy had not been a total trash fire, then I would regard Filoni as Lucas's heir apparent. But as it stands, he's just another proxy to carry out the will of Kathleen Kennedy. As I said earlier in the video, just consider all of the writers and directors that she hired to work on multiple Star Wars projects that she later fired due to quote-unquote creative differences. Filoni clearly has no creative differences with Kathleen Kennedy. Quote, "I'm not telling people what to do," unquote, Filoni told Vanity Fair of his new role. Quote, "But I do feel I'm trying to help them tell the best story that they want to tell. I need to be a help across the galaxy here, like a part of the Jedi Council almost," unquote. The only Star Wars stories that Filoni will be telling will be those that receive Kathleen Kennedy's seal of approval. As I repeatedly pointed out in my various videos that I had released about the Ahsoka series, Dave Filoni did not revive the Star Wars franchise through it, as demonstrated by the fact that it was the least viewed Star Wars series to air on Disney Plus in terms of total minutes viewed as compared with all of the other Star Wars shows to air on the service. The Ahsoka series came nowhere near the viewership numbers that the second season of The Mandalorian had for a variety of reasons, including the fact that it was incredibly boring, it was paced far too slowly, it had mostly bad to mediocre acting with the exception of the late Ray Stevenson, and there was absolutely nothing compelling in the show's plot. And I had mentioned that final point several times in my earlier videos about Ahsoka. I never once used the word compelling to describe anything in the series because it wasn't compelling in any way, shape, or form. And as I had mentioned earlier in the video, as I have seen many hardcore Star Wars fans jumping for joy on social media because of Filoni's promotion to being Lucasfilm's new chief creative officer, so far his most recent offering was mediocre, boring crap, and his creative decisions are clearly exactly what Kathleen Kennedy wants. And you should know by now that when Kathleen Kennedy wants something, you know it's going to be a load of very expensive and disappointing garbage. Just like Ruan Johnson's Star Wars VIII: The Last Jedi was, as well as Solo: A Star Wars Story, which became the first ever Star Wars movie to lose money and flop in theaters, that complete dumpster fire of a movie, Star Wars IX: The Rise of Palpatine, the very disjointed The Book of Boba Fett series on Disney Plus that Filoni was involved in, that deplorable Obi-Wan Kenobi series that was more focused on showing the young Princess Leia as an obnoxious, spoiled brat being chased by that completely pointless character Inquisitor Reva, the Willow series that was so bad that it was canceled not long after premiering and was then removed by Bob Iger from the Disney Plus platform to be a tax write-off, the third season of The Mandalorian, which aired earlier this year and was another series that Filoni was involved in, Kathleen Kennedy's Indiana Jones and the Dildo of Destruction movie that flopped massively in theaters, the completely boring Ahsoka series that Filoni created, wrote, produced, and directed, and finally, the permanent closure of the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser Hotel at Disney World at the end of September that undoubtedly represented hundreds of millions of dollars in losses for the Walt Disney Company. So for anyone who's still jumping up and down for joy with Dave Filoni being made the chief creative officer at Lucasfilm by its CEO Kathleen Kennedy, you may be setting yourselves up to be massively disappointed. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to everyone who has subscribed to our channel. We appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button, and please feel free to share a comment. If you'd like to help support this channel, please press the red subscribe button, and please press the bell to receive notifications for new content. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.